Welcome to Raising the Bar, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on the country's most successful leaders and how they elevate their business and their teams. Please welcome our host, Alison DePauli.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Raising the Bar with Alison DePauli, where we talk to CEOs about how they raise the bar in their business, professional, philanthropic, and personal lives. My guest today is Amie Reynolds, who owns a CertaPro location in New Braunfels, Texas, so you should check that out, and is a friend of mine also. Welcome. Thank you for being on the show today.
Hey, thank you, Alison. Thanks for having me today.
So I have been in your office, and I love the environment that you have created. So I know you think that's funny. I know you laugh at me every time I tell you that, but I come in and everything is nice and organized and tidy, as I would expect, nothing less, but people are always cracking up. Yet everything runs on time, right? Everything is going on time. All the jobs get done on time.
Yep.
I want to talk to you about that because I know that you are a very systems and organized group of people. You're also all related, not all of you, but a chunk of you are related to each other, which I used to work for my father. That's its own issue. And everybody seems to be having a good time and you all ask good questions. So
awesome.
How do you foster that?
You know, it was one of those things when, so my brother and I own the franchise together. And then about 4 years in, we hired our other brother. So all three of us, all three siblings grew up together. We now work together. Mm-hmm. And so it was just the three of us for quite some time, for about the first 7 years of the business. And then we decided, you know, it's time to grow. And we realized, who the heck's going to want to come work for, you know, a sister and two brothers? We've got to create some sort of culture here. So we've spent some time fixing up the office, making it a valuable place to work, somewhere where, you know, someone would come in and say, wow, this place, you know, I want to be here. You know, we really take and embrace that work hard, play hard mentality. So we're pretty serious about what we do here. We make sure that we're taking care of our customers. We make sure that we're taking care of our painters and our staff. But we realize that you've got to enjoy where you're at every day. You've got to love what you do. You have to love the people that you're around. So we really worked hard to create that culture where, you know, people feel like they can be open, have a good time, but they understand that, hey, we're here to get things done. We're here to take care of people, take care of customers. But at the end of the day, we just want to we wanted to create a big family culture where everyone feels welcome here and feels like they can come in and really truly be themselves.
So you've gone about doing that, I think, in a way that most people wouldn't think, because you have been in the reserves for a very long time. And that is all about standard operating procedure and falling in line and going with the herd. And your office does not, it runs like a herd, but it does not run like a herd. And yet you are a huge implementer of EOS and Traction and that very organized way of, these are the big things and this is how we get there and everybody's involved. Talk to me a little bit about that, because that seems oxymoronic to me.
Yeah. So, you know, again, we came from the military, both my brother and I. We were active duty for a few years before we decided to leave active duty. So we kind of brought that mentality with us, which is very process driven. You document every process. You know, everything you do has a reason why you do it, and then the consistency of it, right? So if you create a process, you have to stick with it. And so, you know, we got heavily recruited into the franchise industry coming from the military because we are very good at creating and following a standard operating procedure. You know, it's what we dealt with in the military. So when we came into the business, we were very big on process, and developing those, documenting them, and then sticking with it. And so as we started working through, you know, these processes, we realized that we needed to have an overarching system by which we could follow, you know, particularly that we were a family-owned business, and we needed to make sure that we all knew what our role was and that we had that ownership of that role. And so that's where Traction and EOS really came into play. So we realized that we were naturally gravitating to where I was more the visionary and my brother Anthony was more of the integrator. And that was just kind of a natural progression that sort of happened. And so we were kind of doing EOS before we knew what EOS was. And so once we started learning about it, then we were like, okay, this is our thing. So
can we go back a second for folks that don't know? Give us the definition of visionary and integrator.
Sure. So the visionary, the way I look at it is kind of the 10,000 foot view of the business, the big idea girl, and I've always been the big idea. And then Anthony's the implementer. He's the one that I kind of call boots on ground, the day-to-day operations, where he's the one implementing the big ideas. And that was really just kind of how we gravitated from the very beginning. So.
And I find that to be a very effective, we follow a little bit of a looser version of that here. And we have some very interesting visionary integrator conversations. And they can be a little heated sometimes, I imagine. And I think having that structure around it is very good. And you also have to involve the team in these processes as well. It's not just you and your brother. It's everybody has to be on board with this.
Absolutely. And that's where those weekly meetings, where we identify the rocks, we identify the issues. We keep a pulse on our scorecard on how we're doing. I think that's where we get that involvement. And I think one of the big things as the visionary is sometimes I have to shelf things, and they may not come back for a year, 2 years, 3 years. We're revisiting some things right now that these were discussions that we brought up 4 or 5 years ago, and it just wasn't the right time. And I think you have to understand that your implementer and the team below that implementer has to be comfortable and ready with that process that you want to begin. And if they're not comfortable with it, then it's probably going to be a really painful process. And it might be okay to just go ahead and shelf that idea until the environment is more mature and ready for it.
And I think that's a good thing to discuss as well. And I think you bring that from the military also. Not everything gets done at the same time. I mean, militaries tend to be a little bit bureaucratic organizations.
Oh, yes.
Yet they always move forward.
Right. And I agree with that too. So I think everything for us is it's just baby steps every day, right? We don't have to move mountains every day. We just have to keep moving the needle a little bit every day. And so sometimes those big projects, we have to be realistic and prioritize what is really truly important today that we get done. And that may mean, for us being that we're a cyclical business, we do a lot less painting during the winter. Maybe that's when some of our big projects, we pull those off the shelf December, January, and that gives us some more dedicated time to look at those. But as long as we're moving the needle every day and getting better every day, that's kind of really the ultimate goal.
Talk to me a little bit about how you ended up in the commercial real estate space, because when I think about commercial real estate, you ended up in the trade part of that.
Sure.
And that is not typical. Typically, if a woman is in the commercial real estate business, she's a real estate broker. She sells real estate. Right. She doesn't go fix it. You go fix it.
So really, it just was a diversification for us. Residential is great. It's great cash flow. We love working within our community every day, working with our neighbors. It's fantastic. But at the end of the day, you need to have a diversification of your portfolio. The commercial business, we can stay busy during the slow season because they do a lot of their painting, December, January, especially in retail and office when there's not as many people around. So, we really needed to look at a way that we could help cash flow those slower months. And so, for us getting in was actually a pretty easy sell because a lot of the folks we work with are property managers who happen to also primarily be women. In many instances, the folks that we're giving these estimates to are women. So it's really exciting to see how many women are getting into commercial real estate and are growing their commercial real estate portfolios. And the number of property managers that we deal with, like I said, mostly women, has just been a great and fantastic experience for us.
So you also won a Nabo Award not too long ago.
Was nominated, yes. Yes, that's correct. Oh, thank you. So I was a finalist for Women Business Owner of the Year last year for Nabo. Yeah.
How was that experience for you? I think that's such a good experience for some recognition of a lot of work that you have done.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was fantastic. Just the women were wonderful. They treated us like queens, honestly, throughout the whole process.
Yep.
And it was really just a great opportunity for me to reflect back on where I've come. So I've owned the business now for 11 years. A lot has changed in 11 years of how we operate. including, I've had 2 kids, I have my reserve career. It was just really great for me to use that time to reflect back. And it really, I came back from my deployment to Kuwait a year ago, last summer. And so it was just really kind of perfect timing, because I'd really just come back and we were working hard to kind of get post-COVID, post my deployment in the business, kind of get things where they needed to be. And so it was just really great timing, because I was really proud of the work that my team was doing, getting things back on track after things were reopening and life was kind of getting back to normal. It was just a really great time for me.
Let's talk a little bit about how deployments affect workflow, because your brother's also in the reserve, and I would imagine that you do attract other people that are in the military as well. And there are many people in the reserves, and that can occasionally throw a real monkey wrench into business workflow, and sometimes employers are hesitant to understand they just don't understand how to deal with that.
Yeah, it's difficult. Actually, fortunately, I'm the only one that's in the reserves. My brother did end up leaving the military completely, so, which is probably a good thing, because with being a small business, it is a challenge. I am called up quite a bit, honestly, and sometimes it's very short notice. So the way we've structured things, and I think that goes back to EOS and me being the visionary, a lot of what I do and what I bring to the table, I don't necessarily have to be here, in the office 8 hours a day. So a lot of what I do, I can do from wherever I'm at. I worked quite a bit when I was deployed in Kuwait, in the business. And I was able to accomplish that because of the way we did structure and set things up through EOS and through Traction. So we've kind of kept that in mind, that I'm not always going to be here. And so some of the day-to-day operational stuff that maybe in other situations I would be doing, we have kind of given to other team members and built that into their process, just knowing that, hey, tomorrow there could be a hurricane and I could have to leave. I currently do emergency preparedness for the state of Texas, so I could easily have to leave very quickly. So that was something that we really built into the system.
Does operating the business like that allow you to grow more quickly or ramp up more quickly as work comes in, because it is not dependent on you?
I think so. I think that's kind of what we're seeing. I really truly believe that someone in every business has to not be part of the day-to-day minutia, if that makes sense, because you'll never see the big problems and you'll never see the big opportunities. So you have to take that 10,000-foot view and be able to look at the business holistically, instead of just in your funnel. And so that's kind of really where I look at things. I always say I'm in the office because I open my ears. I'm listening, right? I'm listening to the small conversations that are happening, because that's kind of where you pick up on things where there could be an issue brewing and maybe they don't see it, but being that I can kind of take that larger view and kind of look at everything as a whole, I can kind of see those things coming sometimes.
I would imagine that makes just every day a little bit easier to deal with.
It does. And honestly, it makes it fun. I mean, some people, they dread Mondays. I think for me, I love Mondays because it's like another opportunity, to come in and make a difference and be with my team and have a good time. And frankly, I love the reserves, but when I'm gone, I truly miss it. I miss being here. And I can't wait to get back usually.
I can understand why. I have never laughed as hard as I have in your office.
Yeah.
Capacity.
We know how to cut up, that's for sure.
Yes, you do. And I think that makes such a difference. And I also know that things just seem, there is a process for everything, and things just seem to go along. And, doesn't happen everywhere, even in huge organizations. That's quite an accomplishment.
I think because my brother and I come from the military background, we realized that it's painting. It's not a life or death situation. We can enjoy the process. We can, when things do go a little bit crooked and we have some issues, we're able to kind of look at it from a different perspective, I think. We've been a lot of places, we've seen a lot of things. So we're able to kind of have kind of a more clear, open mind. And then that was something we hired for too. I mean, when we looked at hiring our production manager, who has to deal with the issues on the job site, that was a big thing that we looked for. Someone that was calm under pressure, someone that was a good problem solver, good at conflict resolution. And we actually do caliper testing to see, where those traits fit on that spectrum. And that's kind of something that we really do hire for in that role, because typically most of the time things go great, but sometimes there are, little issues on the job site or miscommunications with the customer that have to be addressed. And so, that was something we really try to say, hey, let's just remain calm in those situations. Let's follow our process. Let's follow our system. And let's, follow the typical conflict resolution system that we have.
I think that's really important. And I see across our clients that some people do really well at that and some do not. And right. I see it, in my professional life as well with different businesses. And it's always interesting to me how everybody responds just a little bit differently, and how some people just do really well at managing that up front. And I think that also takes the temperature down for a lot of people. If you can Sure. manage an expectation up front, even when something goes awry, people just seem to be okay. And you have seen some things.
Yeah.
Some capital S, capital T things. And I think that does bring a little bit of a different perspective. I told somebody the other day, I said, look, I don't actually have my hands in your brain, right? Like nobody's
Right.
going to die here. And I
Right.
think that's an important perspective to have.
It is. And I think too, I mean, like you said, it goes back to expectation management. And one of the things that we learned along the way was how much to communicate. I think that you can over communicate sometimes, where to the point that you complicate the process.
Mhm.
And we were doing that for a certain period of time, where we were almost over communicating with the customer, where we were over setting the expectation, right? That almost as if they were the only customer we've ever had and will ever have, but that's not true. So we've found the right balance of communication and expectation management that I think works well for us. And it was an art. It wasn't really a science. We had to kind of work through that and figure out, where's the right balance of communication with the customer. And once we did that, I think it got a lot easier for us, because I think we were all on the same page going into it.
Yes.
And when you're, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I say when you're on the same page, and they understand what our process looks like and what the end state will be and how we get there, then it's a lot easier for us to manage that throughout the process.
We do a lot of managing expectations as well. And we've also found that when people think that we're their only client, they get nervous.
Well, yes, exactly. Yeah, that's also true too.
So, and I would also imagine that you have systematized so well and so effectively that you can actually give a high personal human touch. And people appreciate that quite a lot in my experience.
They do. I would say one of my things that I love the most, and one of my most proud moments in the business, is not when we get a review, but when we get a review that mentions my staff by name.
Yeah.
I had a great interaction with David, Christine, Angelo, Spencer, whoever it might be. I think that means that we hit the mark, because we created such a good experience that became a personal experience. And so that is really one of my proudest moments as a business owner.
Yes. I think when employees are not children, but they are family-like in some way.
Oh, absolutely.
And they are family in your business. So there's a lot of pride that comes with that, and a lot of referrals too, as well, I would assume.
Yes, we are a referral-based business. Absolutely. We're always making sure that our customers know that, and that we can only grow with their love and support. And so, we have a lot of repeat customers. We have folks that we've painted 6, 7, 8 projects for over the last 12 years. So it's really fun to go back and see them again and be a part of that, whether it's on the commercial side or the residential side.
What is your best piece of advice for people embarking on processizing, I'll make up a word, their business?
So you have to have everyone involved. You have to get everybody in the room, all of your staff. You can't just sit by alone with a notebook and write out a process, because you don't know what you don't know. And everybody that works within the business brings something to the table. They have a piece of that pie. They have, as that job goes from start to finish, it gets passed off to the next person, the next person, the next person. Well, everybody has to be at the table. I think you have to just have a whiteboard session. I mean, you got to just get it all out there. Let everybody be open, let them be honest, and just write it all down. And then you start making sense of all the words and everything, all the beautiful mess that's on that page. You start making sense of it. So, and then be open to reviewing it. We change our processes all the time. I mean, when we first started the business, people didn't book estimates on our website. Now they do. So you've got to understand that things change. The environment changes, how people buy changes, how people communicate changes. So you've got to revisit those processes. They're never done. It's always a fluid, open, process and system. So you got to revisit it.
That was my next question. How often do you revise your processes? Because we do it fairly regularly. Our tools are better all the time. And we had a big internal fight about if we're going to text message people. But you know what? People really like it.
People love text messaging. They don't. People don't answer the phone. They typically will screen their calls. People get so much spam, that they don't answer the phone anymore. And they also don't return voicemail. So we're very heavy on the texting and very heavy on the email. If we are going to do a phone call, typically it's a we text and say, hey, can I call you? So we can discuss this. So it's kind of almost like a setup appointment. And same with in person. If we're going to stop by the job site, we always try to say, hey, we're going to, we let the customer know we're going to stop by and check on the job. We be there. That way we can have that face-to-face interaction with them.
Yep. So, all right. Well, that I think was a very good piece of advice. And I think we will leave it there today. Thank you. I always have such a good time in our conversations.
Same here, Allison. Thank you so much.
So thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you liked this episode, subscribe where you get your podcasts. Wherever you found this one would be a good place. Leave us a review or a like. We really appreciate it, and it helps us grow. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Raising the Bar is powered by Altiqe Consulting, the country's leading independent expert in healthcare cost containment. Astute employers know there's a better way to offer health insurance, and we help them achieve it.